Welcome to Andy Staples on 3. It's your instant reaction on a Saturday afternoon. I'm here with Jesse Simonton, on 3 national writer. We just watched the thicker kicker walk it off from 61 yards, Jesse.
Bailing out his coach. I mean, just colossal mismanagement. Missouri taking the delay of game there. Then they go and send the offense back out on the field. The ball's almost tipped for an interception at the line of scrimmage. And then the thick king, man, just drills it. 61 yards. He looked like he might have been good from 65, 70. The officials were confused on the field. Right, they didn't know if one of their own guys threw a flag.
Half the people in the crowd are wearing yellow shirts, and somebody must have just dropped their shirt as they were running onto the field or threw their shirt from the stands or something.
Oh, incredible. Incredible. But it was a fun game. It really was a fun game. Brady Cook was cooking. That's the best I've seen him play quarterback. Missouri's got some dudes at receiver. I mean, Luther Burden obviously being the best one, but Mookie Cooper and some of those other guys are really good too. Theo Weiss from Oklahoma made some big plays today. Big win.
It was what I thought when Cook got dinged up around around the end of the first half that they were going to have problems for the rest of the game, that K-State was probably going to just control it, but they hung in there, and just an incredible job by Missouri getting the ball down the field. And we'll have to hear what Eli Drinkwitz has to say about that situation, but it sure looked to me like after they clocked the ball, he's got everybody gathered over on the side of the field like it's a timeout. Didn't realize when you clock the ball and you don't have timeouts, 40 seconds, that's all you got. It's got to be like the Baylor TCU game last year where you run them onto the field.
Fire drill. It's a fire drill. Now, at least the clock had stopped, unlike the fire drill that TCU executed. But still, I mean, it was strange because, Eli had actually outcoached Chris Kleiman, I thought, for a lot of this game. He, offensively, the Tigers were pushing the ball vertically. Defensively, they were pressuring Will Howard a lot. Now they seem to be on their heels at times when the 5-star freshman came in, didn't realize he was going to just run it every single time. Yeah. And for a while there, he was getting 6, 7, 8 yards. Yeah, they adjusted finally in the second half.
I'm assuming Avery Johnson also can throw. He was a 5-star recruit. He's really fast, and I get you got a good quarterback in Will Howard, but I'm kind of excited to see what Avery Johnson can do when he's throwing the ball.
Yeah, agreed.
So this was, for Harrison Mevis, vindication here. Remember last year, they're playing Auburn. They have a chip shot, 26-yarder at the end of regulation to win the game. He misses that. Then you have that weird deal where the guy, fumbles
at the pylon.
Drops the ball and fumbles it through the end zone, and that's the end of the game. They were going to win, and then they lost. And if Mevis had kicked the chip shot, they would have won anyway. So this erases that. And Eli Drinkwitz owes, when Harrison Mevis is not playing anymore and is eligible to receive money from Eli Drinkwitz, I'm thinking there's a commission to be paid annually as long as Eli Drinkwitz has the Missouri job.
I think Mevis already has a pretty good NIL Fickburger deal. I think I saw that trending on Twitter. He may get some more. He may get some more shekels for that after you nail a 61-yarder to beat a top 15 team.
He's got money Mevis T-shirts. He's got it all. And yeah, you're right. He is going to be the guy because, this window, there was not a lot of intrigue. And this was the best game. And it was a field storming. And I don't think it was a field storming necessarily because, we beat Kansas State. That was just I can't believe that just happened. That was an SEC record. That's the longest field goal in SEC history.
SEC back, Andy? Non-conference win? SEC back?
Let's not go that far. Let's not go crazy.
Was the demise overblown?
Probably, but let everybody have that for a little while. They spent a lot of years pretending that the SEC is not good, so it's now they can actually revel in it for a minute. So we'll let them revel in that for a minute. But it was just a bizarre sequence. I am yelling at the TV, what are you doing? Why are you not sending the field goal team out? And then, I couldn't figure out if they didn't know what they wanted to do because that would have been a 56-yarder. So it still would have been a long field goal. Do you want to try it or not? And he sends the offense back. It nearly gets picked, as you mentioned. It could have gone so badly.
Again, Eli had done so well coaching in this game up to that point, whereas earlier this season, he was the guy that was getting killed on Twitter because Missouri kept punting the ball on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 on their opponent's 45-yard line. And so to mismanage this situation in a game you really needed, thankfully worked out for him. Thick man comes through. I'll tell you who else looked good though today, Andy. LSU.
Woo. Jayden Daniels was as good as I have seen him play. He was so accurate. Malik Neighbors, Mississippi State just kept single covering Malik Neighbors and getting destroyed on that. And maybe there wasn't anything else they could have done. Maybe they felt like they had to send a lot of guys at Jayden Daniels. And if he beats them on single coverage and finds the open man, God bless him. Well, he sure did. He was incredible. So 30 of 34 for 361 yards and 2 touchdowns.
He was 21 of 22, Andy, in the first half, and the lone incompletion was a throwaway.
Yeah.
Like he had pressure around his feet, and he just made the smart move. I'm just going to get rid of it and throw it away. I mean, it was sensational performance. Malik Neighbors cooking his old team. I mean, he went Kalanga on, he was a former Mississippi State receiver for a year, then transferred to LSU. I ranked him as the number 1 receiver in the SEC and earlier this summer and got some guff from some folks. But I mean, he's a dude.
Yeah, he had an incredible game. You know who else looked great was Harold Perkins, and they were using him differently. Now, obviously, Will Rogers does not require a spy. They were using Harold Perkins as the spy on Jordan Travis in the Florida State game, and it felt like they were wasting him. And in this case, they were not rushing him as frequently as they rushed him last year. They were basically sending him after the quarterback on 3rd and longs, on obvious passing downs. But it felt like even when he was kind of an off-ball linebacker, that he was finding the ball, that he was in the mix on almost every play. And this felt like a better use of him.
Specifically, I think to your point, Matt House was basically – because the Jesse Palmer and those guys were even talking about on the broadcast, LSU's playing kind of an old school 4-3 defense with Harold Perkins. The interesting element and dynamic that comes with that is that because he's such a good rusher, they can basically line him up sort of on the edge of the line of scrimmage and not necessarily send the house or send a bunch of pressure.
There was one receiver in the end zone.
Exactly. You just don't know which 4 or 5 guys are going to come then. Mekhi Wingo gets a sack because Perkins runs an inside stunt. Wingo just walks into the quarterback for a big sack.
Yeah, and that's what I thought was going to happen when they said they're moving Harold Perkins to an off-ball linebacker slot. That's what you can do, because he is so fast and so athletic, you can kind of use him in a Derwin James type role, almost as a hybrid linebacker safety kind of guy, because he is fast. And so I think you do that against most teams, you're going to find a lot more success than doing what you did against Florida State. But this is now, it may be that Mississippi State just does not have the personnel to hang with LSU, even though LSU secondary is not that great. I'm not real sold on Mississippi State's receiving core right now. So that may be the problem. But that was a great bounce back game for LSU. And now they get Arkansas. That's a game I was worried about. I'm less worried about that game now.
Yeah. And Arkansas, we'll see how they look against BYU later today. They were not overly impressive at all against a completely depleted Kent State team a week ago. So if it seems like if you can kind of stop the run with KJ and Rocket, you have a good, keep them one-dimensional. I think LSU, this was the response I think a lot of us wanted to see. Their talent was evident all across the field. They were able to run the ball, on standard downs more effectively in the second half, which is another concern along with the secondary. I think we're all kind of interested in. So impressive performance. You go on the road, you make a statement.
Let us take a question from KLW Griffiths. What's up with BC almost always giving Florida State fits? If BC had cut down on the penalties, they would have won that game. That's exactly right. They do. Now, usually when Florida State plays up there, it is the Red Bandana game. It is the game where they honor Welles Crowther, who's the former Boston College athlete who gave his life saving other people's lives in 9/11. He was a firefighter. He really, I mean, that game, they always come out just really ready to play. Like they bring his mom in. She talks to the team. I'm sorry. And so they get going, and they're usually very tough in that game, even if they're not the better team by any stretch. And I think that's, you had that plus FSU completely looking ahead to Clemson, and they were in control for a lot of the game. A lot of the second half, it felt like they were in control. And then BC came back at the end. They got the scoop and score, and that really kind of changed the tone. But this is one that you could have kind of guessed. This was, if FSU was going to have a clunker, this was going to be it.
And then you had the Jordan Travis scare in the late in the first half. Everyone starts playing Twitter doctor, whether it's a torn labrum or it's an ankle or it's you have that whole situation. I'll tell you, my first thought about that game was when I turned it on. I thought Florida State was in Boston College's uniforms and Boston College was in Florida. I was completely confused on
right, because Boston College wore their road uniforms, but with the paisley for the Red Bandana game.
Right.
And I'm telling you, we've seen that over and over again in that game. They just come out completely jacked up and ready to go. And it's such a good cause. And Welles Crowther, was a volunteer firefighter. He was an equities trader, worked in one of the towers and saved 18 people on 9/11 but lost his life. And so you get inspired by that and you come out and you play really hard. And it seems to be the case year after year. And that's what they did. And I tell you what, Florida State needed to survive something like that. They needed to get through that, because that's, Jesse, I think back to last year, like that NC State game. That's a game Florida State should have won. That's right. And this feels like a game that last year's Florida State team would have lost.
Finds a way to lose. Yeah, finds a way to lose. I agree. And Florida State, to our questioner's point, Florida State certainly was the beneficiary of Boston College. Just playing complete. They certainly played spirited, inspired. It was an inspiring performance, but it wasn't the cleanest performance. And they commit that face mask at the end. But Boston College was going to get the ball back. Florida State's defense was going to have to get a stop when all it would have taken was a field goal to win that game. And Boston College commits, an unnecessary face mask that extends the drive. FSU runs out the clock.
Yeah, there are going to be games like this. And we told you going into the weekend, don't just assume because there's no marquee matchups that there won't be crazy results, because this is what happens. You get these kind of sleepy games and all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, wait, it's not a sleepy game. This team's in it to play. And, I thought going to another game where the final score is maybe not indicative of how close it was played for most of the game, Penn State, Illinois. Penn State did not look crisp on offense in this game. They were very good defensively, forced turnovers. Luke Altmaier, I thought he played fairly well, but he got hurt there at the really kind of right around halftime, or right around the middle of the game, and he was kind of on one leg for a lot of it, which really kept him from being as mobile as he could be. So they only averaged
4 yards a carry. I think that's interesting.
Drew Aller was not smooth. I mean, he was 16 of 33.
Yeah, and that his first road start, okay, but the fact that Illinois got completely grounded into the dust against Kansas, a week ago.
Yeah,
just the Jayhawks rush for almost 300 yards. Penn State's got Katron Allen, Singleton, and they struggled really to get anything going on the ground. So they did cover the hook for us at least. So we both get that dub for the best bets, but it wasn't, as you said, the cleanest performance.
No, it wasn't. And interesting question from Jeremy. Do you think today's LSU team beats today's Florida State team? Yes, but unfortunately, you have to beat them when you play them. And maybe they'll play again, but we all know different teams get up for different games in different situations. And, you know, if Florida State was going to be sleepy on one, then yeah, at Boston College was going to be it. So, especially with Clemson on deck next week. So, it doesn't matter. They played and Florida State dominated them when they played. But yeah, back to Penn State. I don't know what this means, because I said I want to see if they can cruise and if Drew Aller's really that different than Sean Clifford. He threw some beautiful passes that only he would be able to throw, but also there was some stuff that looked not clean, just sloppy decision making. I don't know, and I don't know if it was Illinois' defense was just much better than it was against Kansas, because we knew Johnny Newton was good. Like it was a little surprising to see Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph not having very good games against Kansas. Johnny Newton was awesome against Penn State. He was all over the place.
The law firm showed up today. That's for sure.
Yeah, Johnny was great. Keith was good. So I mean, it might have just been same thing. Illinois at home, first conference game. We're going to show out. And so they got Illinois' best shot and still won by 17 points. So I'm not going to be hypercritical of Penn State in this situation, because they did still pretty much win going away.
But to your point, we're waiting. We've been waiting on this team to kind of step on somebody's throat.
Yeah.
If you're going to be in the same conversation with Michigan and Ohio State as a national title contender, it's at some point you have to kind of assert your dominance, and I would say that's still TBD for the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, and Penn State gets Iowa next week. Like if they play the way they did offensively today,
it's a whiteout game.
Right, they're not going to score much on Iowa. That defense will have to be almost perfect, which look, Iowa gives you a chance to be almost perfect on defense, but. They've got to be better than they were today. We'll see. It was a pretty interesting start to a day that's not supposed to have a lot of crazy matchups. And
Ohio +3, man. I nailed it.
There you go.
Go
Bobcats.
Winner over Iowa State.
And by the way, we got South Carolina up on Georgia as we speak.
Yep.
Crimson Tide starting Tyler Buckner in Tampa. It's going to be a wild day. Jesse, I'm headed off to the Swamp. So the next time I talk to everybody, I'll be at Swamp.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you again after the afternoon games.